1 Kings 20. Your header might say Ben-Hadad attacks Samaria. We're about to see some battles take place between Ahab and enemies around him. Now Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, mustered his entire army, accompanied by 32 kings with their horses and chariots. So these are probably more like, these nations aren't as large as what you might think in the modern context. So this might be like states, or even like some of them might be like the size of counties. These are other areas that he has that he's in control over that pay tribute to him. But the emphasis is that this is a large army full of horses and chariots. He besieged Samaria and he attacked it. He sent messengers into the city to Ahab, king of Israel, saying, "This is what Ben-Hadad says. Your silver and gold are mine, and the best of your wives and children are mine." The king of Israel answered, "Just as you say, my lord the king, I and all I have are yours." Basically, he submits to him. He says, "Sure, we'll pay tribute." The messengers came again and said, "This is what Ben-Hadad said. I sent to demand your silver and gold, your wives and your children, but about this time tomorrow, I am going to send my officials to search your palace and the houses of your officials. They will seize everything you value and carry it away." The king of Israel summoned all the elders of the land and said to them, "See how this man is looking for trouble? When he sent for my wives and my children, my silver and my gold, I did not refuse him." The elders and the people all answered, "Don't listen to him or agree to his demands." Basically, they're saying, this guy's putting too much pressure on us. This guy's asking for too much. We're going to have to fight him. So he replied to Ben-Hadad's messengers, "Tell my lord the king, your servant will do all you demand the first time, but this demand I cannot meet." They left and took the answer back to Ben-Hadad. Then Ben-Hadad sent another message to Ahab, "May the gods deal with me, be it ever so severely, if enough dust remains in Samaria to give each of my men a handful." The king of Israel answered him, "Tell him, one who puts on his armor should not boast like the one who takes it off." Ben-Hadad heard this message while he and the kings were drinking in their tents, and he ordered the men, "Prepare to attack." So they prepared to attack the city. While this is taking place, the Bible tells us a prophet came to Ahab, king of Israel, and announced, "This is what the Lord says. Do you see this vast army in front of you? I'll give it into your hand today, and then you will know that I am the Lord." As if like he should have known he was the Lord already. Ahab had already seen what God did at Mount Carmel. Ahab had already seen how God brought rain onto the land. But God says, "I'm going to show you again just how mighty I am. I'm going to defend Israel against the attacks of the enemy." And this is the best part for you and for me as believers, honestly, even though they don't deserve it. "But who will do this?" asked Ahab. The prophet replied, "This is what the Lord says. The junior officers under the commanders will do it." "Well, who will start the battle?" he asked. The prophet looks at him and he says, "You will." Sometimes there's things that we have to do by faith that God calls us to, and it doesn't make sense. It's irrational. It's illogical. But God says, if you trust me, I'll go before you. So Ahab summoned the 232 junior officers under his commanders, and he assembled the rest of the Israelites, 7,000 in all. They set out at noon while Ben-Hadad and the 32 kings allied with him were in their tents getting drunk. The junior officers under the provincial commanders went out first. Now Ben-Hadad had dispatched scouts who reported, "Men are advancing from Samaria." He said, "If they have come out for peace, take them alive. If they have come out for war, take them alive." The junior officers under the provincial commanders marched out of the city with the army behind them, and each one struck down his opponent. At that, the Arameans fled with the Israelites in pursuit. But Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, escaped on horseback with some of his horsemen. The king of Israel advanced and overpowered the horses and chariots and inflicted heavy losses on the Arameans. Afterward, the prophet came to the king of Israel and said, "Strengthen your position and see what must be done, because the next spring the king of Aram will attack you again." Meanwhile, the officials of the king of Aram advised him, "Their gods are gods of the hills. That is why they were too strong for us. But if we fight them on the plain, surely we will be stronger than they. Do this. Remove all the kings from their commands and replace them with officers. You must also raise an army like the one you lost, horse for horse and chariot for chariot, so we can fight Israel on the plains. Then surely we will be stronger than they." He agreed with them and acted accordingly. The next spring, just as the Lord had prophesied, Ben-Hadad mustered their Arameans and went up to Aphek to fight against Israel. When the Israelites were also mustered and given provisions, they marched out to meet them. The Israelites camped opposite them, like two small flocks of goats, while the Arameans covered the countryside. The man of God came up and told the king of Israel, "This is what the Lord says. Because the Arameans think the Lord is a God of the hills and not a God of the valleys, I will deliver this vast army into your hands, and they will know that I am the Lord. He says, I'm going to beat them again. For 7 days they camped opposite each other, and on the seventh day the battle was joined. The Israelites inflicted 100,000 casualties on the Amarian foot soldiers in one day. The rest of them escaped to the city of Aphek, where the wall collapsed on 27,000 of them. And Ben-Hadad fled to the city and hid in an inner room. His official said to him, Look, we have heard that the kings of Israel are merciful. Let us go to the king of Israel with sackcloth around our waists and ropes around our heads. Perhaps he will spare your life. Wearing sackcloth around their waists and ropes around their heads, they went to the king of Israel and said, Your servant Ben-Hadad says, Please let me live. The king answered, Silliness. Is he still alive? He is my brother. This is the dude who was about to kill you. This was the dude who mocked the Lord. This was the dude who was trying to destroy Israel. And he says, he is my brother. And a lot of this, just so you can understand, is culturally based. Kings often would not kill kings that they conquered. They would put them into servitude. And it was really, the premise of it was they didn't want to be killed if they were conquered. So it was like a general unspoken rule amongst the territories in the time that you generally would not kill kings unless you were just a ruthless king. Most kings would allow other kings to live as a self-preservation tactic. The men took this as a good sign and were quick to pick up his word. Yes, your brother Ben-Hadad, they said. Go and get him, the king said. When Ben-Hadad came out, Ahab had him come up into his chariot. I will return the cities my father took from your father, Ben-Hadad offered. You may set up your own market areas in Damascus as my father did in Samaria. Ahab said, on the basis of a treaty, I will set you free. So he made a treaty with him and let him go. So he basically sued for peace, would be the equivalent, like modern example, World War II, when the Germans were finally defeated, or World War I as well. They would sue for peace, and they would have this convention where they would create this treaty for how we're going to move forward. And this is what takes place. Verse 35, though, a prophet condemns Ahab. By the word of the Lord, one of the company of the prophets said to his companion, Strike me with your weapon, but he refused. So the prophet said, Because you have not obeyed the Lord, as soon as you leave me, a lion will kill you. And after the man went away, a lion found him and killed him. The prophet found another man and said, Strike me, please. So the man struck him and wounded him. Then the prophet went and stood by the road waiting for the king. He disguised himself with his headband down over his eyes. As the king passed by, the prophet called out to him, Your servant went into the thick of the battle, and someone came to me with a captive and said, Guard this man. If he is missing, it will be your life for his life, or you must pay a talent of silver. While your servant was busy here and there, the man disappeared. That is your sentence, the king of Israel said. You have pronounced it yourself. Then the prophet removed the headband from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized him as one of the prophets. He said to the king, This is what the Lord says. You have set free a man I have determined should die. Therefore, it is your life for his life, your people for his people. Sullen and angry, the king of Israel went to his palace in Samaria. The moral of the story, bringing it all back, is this. Enemies attacked Israel, and even though Israel didn't deserve it, and even though Ahab wasn't a good king, God protected Israel. And he did it not just once, he did it twice. And he showed himself mighty. But here's the downfall of Ahab. Here's the mistake. God moved, and Ahab was not moved by God moving. Ahab did not listen to God in how to deal with his enemies. And sometimes in your life and in my life, this is the modern application. God will give us a victory in an area of our life that we don't deserve. And God will tell us, this is how you need to move forward. You need to remove what I've given you victory over. But sometimes in pride, we'll say, no, I don't need to remove it. I have victory. I have authority over it. I can manage it. We come back, and maybe months later, maybe years later, we realize that we couldn't manage it. It once again rules over us. And the principle of the story is this: if God says remove it, so that it doesn't remove you from what God has for your future. Be blessed today.